the 30th ancestor of the Lord Rama. He wanted to perform the sacrifice, Ashwamedh sacrifice, and for this, that he tried to perform this, but out of jealousy, Indra stole his horse, and then he sent his 60,000 sons just to search that particular horse. It is said in the Ramayana that the sons of Sagar reached to the Kapilashram's. And even Bhagirath brought down Ganga and he brought down to this ashrama. Now, there is a proverb in Bengal that Shop Tirtho Barbar, Ganga Sagar Ekbar. So, it is absolutely inaccessible land, because even in the 18th century report says that it was infested by the tiger. So tiger infested land, and now it became a holy place, one of the greatest holy places of India. That I would like to pay my heartfelt thanks to all of you, and my special thanks to Niraji for inviting me here to present my paper. But I have been asked by Niraji that to say something about Bengal, since I belong to this region. So I thought, what would be the better than speaking on the Sagar Island, that is Ganga Sagar. So through the ages, that particular area became, or that Sagar Island became the most holy place, and it is one of the most sacred places of India. I have chosen that particular topic, that the Ganga Sagar, or the Sagar Island. But frankly speaking, that ignoring that ancient yugas. So just to identify that land, identify the sacredness of that particular region. So ignoring that the ancient yugas, because through the yugas, Treta, Dapur, and even Kali yugas, that particular area, the particular Sagar, Sagar is remaining as one of the most greatest holy places of India. So when we talk about the particular Sagar Island or Ganga Sagar, actually we cannot deny, we cannot leave aside the origin of Ganga, because it is related to that origin, that is the descent of Ganga. So it is a journey. And this journey is absolutely from the descent of Ganga, and it meets to the Sagar or the sea. So my topic is that historical and cultural trail from Ganges to Sagar Island, a journey through epic and Puranic stories. My paper is divided into two sections. That the first, I would like to say something about the origin, and then after that I would like to highlight the island Ganga Sagar. Now, first of all, there are so many literature describing that particular the story, that is descent of Ganga, and some of you all aware of that particular story, but vividly described by the Ramayana, that is epic, has given us that information or that particular story, that is Ganga Avatarana, or the descent of Ganga. So in the Balakanda of Ramayana, we find that particular story, and perhaps you all know that story. I'm not going into the details, but just want to say something about the Sagar, the 30th ancestor of the Lord Rama. He wanted to perform the sacrifice, Ashwamedh sacrifice, and for this, that he tried to perform this, but out of jealousy, Indra stole his horse, and then he sent his 60,000 sons just to search that particular horse. Now, that is the journey. Again, it is a journey that the sons ultimately reach to the Sagar Island and meet the Kapil, the Sage Kapil, just to find out the horse. And they thought that that horse was stolen by the Sage Kapil, and then the Kapil out of anger, cursed them and reduced them to ashes. Now, after the few generations, the great grandson of Sagar, that is Bhagirath, came into the scene, and he tried to propitiate first Brahma and then Lord Shiva, just to for just for pray. He prayed for that water, and that is the descent of Ganga. And Ganga comes down at that time after propitiating Shiva and Brahma. That Ganga had to come down to the earth. So that is the journey of Ganges, river Ganges from the Himalayas. Now the Balakanda of Ramayana has a graphic description of this, that is the descent of Ganga. And now when from the head of the Shiva, Ganga comes down to the earth, then she splits herself into 7 rivers. Now in the morning that Dr. Fonia has already mentioned that river of that particular 7 rivers at this. Now what is interesting to find that the names are quite different. In the Puranic text, we have that particular, the story, the mentions of that particular story. So in the Vayu Purana, we find that actually that particular descent of Ganga has been mentioned in Vayu Purana, and here we find the names, that is the Nolini, Radhini, Pabuni. These are the eastern, that these 3 streams flowed towards east, and then the 3 other rivers, the Shita, Chakshu and Sindhu, went to the western side, and the 7th one followed the chariot of Bhagirath. Now here we can see that the streams are not identified. We cannot identify it with the modern names, but only the Sindhu we can identify, and it goes to the western side. Now, what is interesting that the Ramayana and any Puranic text cannot give us the topographical situations of this, the flow of the Ganga. But definitely, we know that it comes from the Himalayan part and flows through a vast stretch of land in the northern plains and reach to meet the Sagar. But certain characteristics are given there. And these characteristics, what we find that simply when she comes down to earth, then some of the noise, she made some noise. And because she comes down through the rocks and the boulders. So if you visit Gangotri, then you will find that, yes, definitely, the terrific noise is coming up from that particular flow. So this is also very important. But now the second part, after passing through a vast land, vast plain, then Ganga enters to the land of Bengal. Now, my focus is, though it is a long journey, and as you know, that due to the time constraint, I am not going into the details of that. But when the Ganga enters into the Bengal, now my focus is on that particular region and particular that story. Now, there are several Puranas. That is the Brahma Purana, then Padma Purana, Brahmanda Purana, Bhagavat Purana, and also Vayu Purana, mentioning the descent of Ganga and its confluence with the sea. So here, what we find that when we're talking about the Sagar, then when we're talking about that particular sea or the land, then automatically the most sacred place and the most significant part of this is the Kapil ashram. So it is said in the Ramayana that the sons of Sagar reached to the Kapil ashrams. And even Bhagirath brought down Ganga, and he brought down to this ashrama. Now, one particular word is very important in the Ramayana. We find that Ganga enters into Roshatala. That means it is a subterranean region, and that what we find in the Ganga Sagar region. So here again, that these Puranic texts help us to know that particular characteristics of this land and the subterranean region and the natural features of that particular region. So that is important for us. And when I would like to show some of these pictures or some of the maps so that you can understand that it is very difficult. Some of the regions are very difficult to get access. So inaccessible land is there. So when we cannot access to that particular land, we have to depend on the text. So there are several mentions in the Puranic text. I am not going into this particular descriptions. Now here I want to show you that is some of the first that it comes from the Gangotri region, and it is said that the confluence of the splitting up the 7 rivers. But as you know, in the hills region, the Ganga is known as a Bhagirathi, and Bhagirathi meets at Devaprayag, that Alakananda, and then flows down towards south. And now first it turns to west, and then again the north, and then again the southern part. So from this part, that is known as Ganga. Culturally speaking, historically speaking, it's a vast stretch of land. And since Ganga is a lifeline of Indian people, then you will find that the both banks of that river, that they are developed a number of villages, cities, and sacred places, tirthas, holy places. So I'm not going into the details of that. But when we reach to the Bengal, then again it comes that the Ganga enters into from near the Sahibganj and Sagar region of the northern, the Rajmahal hills. The river enters into an extensive alluviated land of Bengal. And now first here we find that from the Murshidabad region that it goes down to the south. That means just to meet the sea. Now the upper part of the river, you will find that it is absolutely, it is known as, it is a non-tidal zone. It is known as the Bhagirathi, and then the lower part, it is a tidal zone, it is known as Hooghly. So it is a Hooghly, Bhagirathi Hooghly river, and it is a western distributary of Ganga. And here we see that the particular, when Ganga meets the sea, that means it is absolutely the Ganga Sagar. What is important here? The Ganga Sagar is famous for the sage, for the ashram of Kapil Muni, Kapil sage. Now the question is, who was Kapil Muni? Who was the Kapil? Because in Bhagavata Purana, we find that it mentions that Kapil is the 5th incarnation of Vishnu. And he was the exponent of the Shankha philosophy, and he was the son of Kardama, and his mother was that Devavati. So here he taught, the Kapil taught his mother that the religious or that particular spiritual wisdom, and it is nothing but that the Shankha philosophy. And he also taught her that is Ashtanga Marga and the Bhakti Yoga. So Kapil was very important here, and that is why that place became very sacred and holy places to the Indian people. Now there is a proverb in Bengal that Shop Tirtho Barbar, Ganga Sagar Ekbar. So it is absolutely inaccessible land, because even in the 18th century report says that it was infested by the tiger. So tiger-infested land, and now it became a holy place, one of the greatest holy places of India. Now when it comes down to the northern plain, so it is divided into 3 distinct parts, that is upper, lower, and you can see that it is absolutely the Deltaic region, the world's largest delta region of Bengal, and it's located in Bengal. So it is, again, the map, you can see that from the Rajmahal hill, that Ganga enters into that particular region and going down in form of a Hooghly river, and it is innumerable tributaries there are joined in that particular region. Now next to this, that is the flow of the river, and you can see that even in the Tribeni that we find the confluence of the 3 rivers, Saraswati, Jamuna, and the Bhagirathi, and then that Ganga goes down, that is the Hooghly river goes down to this, and now it reaches to this Sagar Island. Now, Sagar Island is absolutely a largest and stable island of the Hooghly estuary. So it belongs to the most active deltaic region. But if you see the lower part, it is a lower part of this, then you can find that it is characterized by the tidal creeks, the mangroves, then mud floods, then salt marshes, and their dunes, sand dunes, sand beaches. So this is the characteristics of this. And now this next slide. Yes, you can see the red one is the Sagar Island, and it is on the western part we find the Hooghly River, and the eastern part the Bartola River, and it is the south is open to the sea. So there are innumerable islands, small and big islands are there. But culturally, some of the islands are very rich. So I would like to show you some of another things. Now you can see it is the government, the West Bengal government have given that particular map here, that the shifting of rivers. It is almost from the early 18th century map here, and you can see the configuration of the Sagar Island. Now, actually, the Sagar Island is famous for its Kapil Muni ashram. And from the childhood, we hear that the temple is absolutely, throughout the year, it is submerged. And only in the Makar Sankranti that you can see it is visible. So that is very important, but I would like to show you that it is not the modern temple, as always you can find that modern temples, but in 1841, one newspaper which was published from Scotland, and even in the Indian version was there. There, that particular one correspondent mentioned that the last temple, that meant ancient temple, was seen in 1840, and after that, that the entire temple was submerged. So we do not have the modern, ancient temple here, but in spite of that, the modern temple is there, and definitely, and we have several such, and that it became a very it's a great pilgrimage center and tourist center also. Now I want to show you some of the pictures, because the Ganga Avatarana is a very famous story and very popular story throughout India. So some of the sculptures from Mahabalipuram and many other. So this is a Kalighat painting, which is also famous, that the Bhagirath is wanted to appease this. Now the earlier one, you can see the villages. Once it is a tiger-infested region, but now we will find almost 46 to 47 villages are there, and from these we have collected the cultural materials, that means archaeological remains is there. Next, please. This is the modern temple, and now you can see this. Next, please. Some of these potteries and the sculptures recovered from these villages. But unfortunately, we do not have any scientific investigation, that means excavation is there. Because it is also very difficult, even today, to excavate that particular site, but explored for many times, and we have certain way. But the culturally, historical and cultural situation, we can see that only from the Shunga Maurya Shunga period onwards that we are getting that cultural remains. Next, please. And this is from Monditala, Rakhoshitala, and so many villages. The structures are there giving the evidence of the settlements. Next, please. This is now from this, but Sagur Island is a famous. It now it belongs to the Ashmolean Museum in London, and here you can see that is a beautiful image of Vishnu. It is from the Sagar Island. Yes, again this Vishnu image. Next, please. Now this is another site, just eastern part of this. That site is known as, because it is one cultural orbit, we find that the same cultural material, it is from Dhonchia site. It is absolutely inaccessible land, and it is a tidal site, and throughout the year, that is, it is absolutely full of muds and water. But when the tidal water recedes, then it is visible. And from these particular sites, so many early historic potteries and the terracottas have been collected. But it is again infested by the tiger, because it is absolutely in the midst of the tidal creeks and the full of the mangroves and tiger-infested region. But the local collectors, they usually go there and then they collect the materials after receding the water. So this is a very important site. But unfortunately, archaeologists cannot do anything, because it is almost 6 to 7 feet high. The mud flood is there. So it is not possible to excavate. Only we have to depend on explorations. Now you can see, I will ask Dr. Mani, that you see that is the Gupta terracottas are huge collections are there from one side. Then how it is possible? Because it is definitely once there was a village and perhaps there was a workshop, and so that is the when the water recedes, then we find that so many terracottas belong to this. And we have also that particular region that is the seals and having the Gupta Brahmi script. So we can date that particular image because on the basis of stylistic ground, no other evidence, no other way to date all these materials. But now here comes Hamara Granth, Hamare Itihas. Because the archaeologist, when fails, then historians, definitely our literature helps us. Because we do not have any other way to identify to that particular region. We cannot reconstruct the region only through the archaeological materials. We have to depend on the history. So it is definitely our Grantha and our Itihas. Thank you very much.